This is the Comic Book Kaiju podcast, a comic book discussion podcast where we love comics and you should too. I'm one of your hosts, Trent Justin Vactor. I have Mr. Markus Seaberry on the line all the way from Planet Memphis, baby. Seaberry, how you doing?
Yeah, you know, in town, anytime, man. You feel me?
And we have Chris Eaton on the line, but at the moment he is, let's say, out and about, but he will be joining us momentarily. We have a very special guest today. We have one of the best comic book creators on YouTube. The man, the myth, the legend, the Blurred Without Fear, the person who not only covers Marvel, DC, Milestones, Spectrum, everything you could think about in the comic book world. He breaks down superheroes, breaks down villains, breaks down everything that you want. And one of the finest YouTube channels that you can possibly have. We have Mr. Ernie, the Blurred Without Fear himself. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing fantastic.
Excellent.
Thank you. You made me sound bigger and better than I feel. I was like, hey. Whew. I don't know if I can live up to this.
Well, I am very happy that you are here. I'm sure Mr. Seaberry, Mr. Eaton, we're all honored that you have joined us today. And we have a very good topic today. So I want to get to that very shortly. Mr. Eaton, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. I'm super excited to be on this episode with one of my favorite comic book YouTubers, one of the best in the game.
Thank you.
We actually, I don't know, there's very small chance you remember this. We actually ran into each other at an AEW show a couple of years ago.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
That is fantastic. But I very much want to get to all of this comic goodness that we have for us today. But I did want to let everybody know that you can also subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us. Let your friends know that we are here. We are talking comics every week on the Comic Book Kaiju. Specifically this month, we're going to be talking Supergirl, the Woman of Tomorrow, for our Book of the Month Club. So if you want, go read that comic. Spoiler alert, it's good. Come back, check out the Book of the Month Club at the end of November. We will be talking all about that. Hey, Ernie, have you read that Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow?
Woman of Tomorrow, that one is on my list of things to read.
Nice.
I've not actually read that one yet. I've read some Supergirl in the past, just not that Supergirl.
Okay, I would say I have read it, and I think that actually is probably my favorite Supergirl story of all time. So just a little spoiler, don't want to give away too much of my thoughts, but I highly recommend Supergirl, the Woman of Tomorrow. We'll be talking all about it on our Book of the Month Club. Okay, let's get right into it. I want to ask Ernie. Now, this is a question that I've had burning at the tip of my tongue. Actually, since we did our Naomi episode, we did a Book of the Month Club on Naomi, and I've been thinking about this question. I've been also wanting to ask Seaberry this too, so I'm going to get his thoughts. But we'll go to Ernie first and foremost. Mr. Brian Michael Bendis, he has created a number of characters throughout the years. Not only has he created Naomi, which I talked about, he also created Riri Williams. He also created Miles Morales. Why is it that when I go to my wife and say to her, hey, you know Miles Morales? She's like, yeah, I love Miles. He's my boy. When I say, all right, what about Riri Williams? Who, Rihanna? Why is it that Miles is so much more well-known and Riri and Naomi, which they feel very kind of similar to what Bendis was trying to do with Miles. I feel like he's trying to do that with Riri and Naomi. Why is it that I think, or why do you think, I should say, Ernie, that there's been such a vast difference in the way that those characters have been accepted into the comic culture?
Honestly, it's complicated because, to be fair, Miles was catching that hate too at first.
Right.
But he kind of eased in. Like, eventually people, I think, warmed up to Miles Morales, because you just keep telling good stories, and eventually the naysayers they'll either go away or they'll break down and just start getting into it. That's usually what happens. But in the case of Riri Williams, I think it was a perfect storm of things that have happened, because one of the sadly, that Perfect Storm was a not so perfect comic, and that was Civil War II, which I don't hate Civil War II the way a lot of people do, but I will say that book has a great deal of character assassination in it. And it largely centers around a character that we are not talking about. So,
right. Yes.
But I'll just say Captain Marvel gets a lot of character assassination in that
Yes.
comic.
100%.
However, I think that you kind of have to talk about it a little bit, because with Ironheart, the whole thing with Ironheart was like the whole all new, all different
Right.
Marvel thing, which a lot of people did not like to begin with, because it was, oh, you're taking my characters, you're either making them black, or you're making them a woman, or you're making them both. And it was like, that's not really what's happening. But I understand where you're coming from.
They didn't like the all new, all different, because it was both new and different.
Yeah, which is funny, because everyone, like, whenever I talk to people about all new, all different Marvel, like, or Anad, whatever they you want to call it,
Right.
a lot of people, it's always said with Venom in their voice, and not the good kind. But it's like, it's never the good kind. It's sad to me, because it's like all new, all different is a label that Marvel's had since like forever. Like, you go back to like the 70s and find all new, all different in a lot of their titles. But like, this was just like a huge market thing. But when Riri hit the scene, I think what happened was a lot of people didn't like the fact of how she was marketed. I think that was a huge misstep, and that can be both Marvel's fault, and it can also be the naysayers' fault as well for not being open-minded. But the whole thing was like, oh, well, Tony's dead. And not only is he dead, but there's a girl now who is taking up. Yeah, that was another thing too. A lot of people mistakenly said, "Oh, well, she can't be Iron Man. She's a girl." That's why she's not called Iron Man. She's in a book called Iron Man, but her name is Ironheart. But that's neither here nor there.
Right.
But the other issue was, oh, well, now she's black, and then you throw in the whole, oh, well, wait a minute, she's 15 years old. Well. And she's supposed to be smart, because that was kind of the thing. Like, everybody Marvel kind of mistakenly tried to market her as being as smart as Tony Stark, and a lot of people didn't want to jive with that, because they're like, no, because they do the same thing with Moon Girl.
Right.
They're like, how can Moon Girl be the smartest person on the planet? She's only like 13 years old.
Yeah.
And people get upset about it.
Right.
It just is what you have to accept it.
Right.
But I think the issue with Ironheart was, yeah, it was a perfect storm of things. And I will admit, while I think people really hated her, like almost unceremoniously and without warrant, hated her, I think once people kind of like got their Iron Man back, when Tony came back and was like, okay, I'm Iron Man now, I think people kind of just stopped focusing on her, because I noticed that like it went from, oh, this is SJW, nobody even really talks about her anymore. Now, granted, that'll change here very soon, I think, because of the Ironheart TV series is coming out. Plus, you got Wakanda Forever coming out, where she's going to be in that. But yeah, I think Miles, I think what really helped was that, because he kind of had a similar situation. Spider-Man had just died in the Ultimate Comics.
Right.
Spider-Man's dead. Who is this? I think a lot of people, I remember hearing about how extra everyone kept saying Miles's origin story was, about how, oh, why's he got to be black and Puerto Rican? And it's like, I was like, I don't know if you guys ever lived in New York or been in New York, but that's actually a pretty common mixture of human being, by my estimation. It's like, that's actually pretty New York. That's probably more New York than a New York accent. But a lot of people, because I remember at first, I remember people like just crapping all over Miles Morales. And then eventually, the stories kept coming in. The stories were consistently good. Miles was a very endearing character. And eventually, I think he just broke the ice or melted the ice over those cold, dead hearts that didn't like him. And I think it also helped that Marvel was really good about making sure he wound up in a lot of marketing for, like, because you think about it, the last 4 or 5 Spider-Man cartoons, I think, that have come out, Miles is in them.
Right.
He's in the Spider-Man video games. He is in all of the mobile games. And then eventually he got his own, and you get to, by the time he got his movie, Miles was practically a household name. He was all like the movie kind of pushed him over the edge to household name with Into the Spider-Verse. But like by that time, he was kind of already kind of like sneaking through the door. And people were like, oh, yeah, Miles, man, dude, Miles Morales, man, that guy, dude, he's for real. And I think just it was the representation. But a lot of people try to say that Riri she wasn't authentic. People try to say she wasn't black enough. Some people thought that she was too black, which is weird because she doesn't really act like a stereotypical black person.
Right.
Like the way that I think some comics readers are conditioned, from the 60s, 70s, and 80s
right.
to believe how black, like she doesn't say jive turkeys, enough for people. She talks like a black 15-year-old girl would today.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of it's unfair. Now, I will admit, Brian Michael Bendis, while he is a fantastic writer, I know a lot of people, it's popular to crap on Brian Michael Bendis. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this man hasn't written some of the best comics ever made. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like he wasn't present for some of the greatest comics of our generation.
Yes.
But does he throw up some misses? Yes. Look, man, even Jordan threw up a brick every now and then. Look, sometimes them shots didn't always drain. You know what I'm saying? But,
you miss 100% of the shots you never take.
Exactly. And one of the things that's kind of unique about Riri is that, he was trying to accomplish something, and it was with Naomi as well. Because Naomi, and even with her having a TV show, most people still don't know who the hell she's supposed to be.
Right.
But Riri especially, even though she even got a little bit of a cartoon thing going. It wasn't a series like Spider-Man gets, but it's like she got one of those little Marvel Rising jobs, and I thought it was cool. I thought she's an interesting character. She's a cool character. She has a tragic backstory that I think people overlook. But I noticed the thing I saw people focus on all the time is that she stole her powers. Like that was the thing. Like the thing I used to always see the common complaint. Oh, she's a thug. She's a thief. Call the police. Because supposedly she stole her powers, and yes, technically, because I think part of the story was that she stole some of the equipment from her classmates at MIT. But here's the thing: no one keeps that same energy for Terry McGinnis, everybody's precious Batman Beyond. Nobody keeps that same energy. Terry stole a whole bat suit. And nobody says anything. Star-Lord. He ain't supposed to be Star-Lord. He stole that. He killed people to get them out of the way so he could become Star-Lord. He wasn't supposed to be Star-Lord. He was never supposed to be Star-Lord. But I think that's also because nobody cares about Star-Lord. But there's lots of characters who stole their powers. Nobody bats an eyelash at them.
Right. Jason Todd literally stole wheels off the Batmobile.
Yes, dude. He had the Batmobile sitting on bricks. Like, come on now.
Yeah, right.
So right. I mean, I feel like people, they pick and choose when they want to be angry about a particular character. They pick and choose, and you could literally have, like, case in point, one could just as easily say, like, because some people say, oh, they haven't earned it. Well, Peter didn't earn being Spider-Man. He just got bit by a spider. Any of us could have gotten bit by a spider. A radioactive one? Okay, debatable. But at the end of the day, he just got bit by a spider. Right. A lot of superheroes just happen to be in a bad place at the work, like Daredevil. Daredevil didn't earn his blindness. It was an accident. Hell, Spectrum, Monica Rambeau, she didn't get her powers through some act of valor. She literally she was next to something that blew up. And the same thing goes for the current Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. She was next to something that blew up. That's how she got her powers. Even though that's technically kind of been a retcon. But yeah, a lot of your favorite superheroes. Hell, Batman. I mean, yeah, granted, he earned being a playboy billionaire, philanthropist, whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, would he be Batman if his parents didn't get shot?
Batman's superpower is white privilege.
Yeah, that's why when he wears the mask,
That's
He
why
leaves the
there's a
mouth
cutout.
open. Yeah. When the police show up, they're like, "Oh, it's cool. It's cool. He's good. He's good. Let him go. Let him go."
Oh,
Wait a minute. Well, oh no, he's good. He's good.
oh
Yeah.
man.
But no, but I think it's a lot of misplaced aggression that I think people have towards characters like that. It's always something. They'll never be perfect. And honestly, I think even after Wakanda Forever comes out and Ironheart show comes out, it don't matter how good the character is portrayed in the MCU. There's still gonna be people who are gonna be mad about it. For one reason or another. But I think eventually people will get over it because once again, if you tell good stories, it kind of becomes hater proof. You know what I mean? Like it becomes hater proof at that point. Like, oh, it's good. It's
Excellence is hater proof.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
and that goes to the motto of this podcast is there are no bad characters, only bad writers. Like I've had so many times where I didn't like a character and then I read a certain writer's take on that character. Like Daredevil is a prime example, and Bendis was the one who made me realize, I love Daredevil. This character is one of my favorite characters now, and because of Bendis and then Brubaker, Mark Waid, everybody who came afterwards, and even to this day with Chip Zdarsky. And,
I would say Daredevil's probably the most consistent. I mean, since Bendis, the most consistently written comic book character. I would dare say it, both Marvel and DC has some of the most and that's with creative changes.
Right.
I think Daredevil's easily one of the most consistently well-written characters. But no, I feel the same way. I used to there's characters I've even talked about on in my videos where I've said that I didn't like this character at first, and eventually I read a particular comic and I was like, okay, maybe this character's not so bad. Maybe it was just a person. And that's why I always tell people, like, sometimes a writer just isn't for you. Like, there's certain writers that I know aren't for me. Grant Morrison is one of them. I like Grant Morrison. He's a good writer, but just his stories, he has the Stephen King effect for me. Like, they always start good, but I'm always left scratching my head by the end. And that's probably by design. That said, I enjoy his new X-Men. It's weird, but I enjoy it. It's weird.
Grant Morrison makes me feel so unintelligent. I'd be like,
you know who does it?
I have the Emperor New Clothes effect with Grant Morrison. I'm like, he's not Grant Morrison. I'm a dummy. I don't get it. I could have gotten a degree in comparative literature. I made poor life choices. That's why I don't understand this work.
No. If you really want to feel stupid, read Jonathan Hickman's Decorum.
Oh yeah.
Which is a book that I have constantly said it's the best book I'm not reading because I refuse to read it because I tried reading the first issue. I felt like a moron. I was like, I've read East to West. I feel like I'm better than this. And I was like, I guess, this one, I was like, you know what, Hickman, I done been with you through thick and thin, man. Black Monday Murders, East to West, House of X, Avengers, New Avengers, Secret Wars, Time Runs. I've been down there with you, man, but this is the one journey I can't take with you.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience. You guys remember back before G4 was when it was Tech TV and they had like a late night anime block?
Yes.
There was an anime called Serial Experiments Lane.
I remember that.
I've watched that series through because it was on sequentially. I've watched it through probably twice now. I was younger when I saw it, but I was like, I think of myself as relatively smart. This show is smarter than me, and I get the Morrison thing. I'm a Morrison fan too, but yeah, that's that. Sometimes you'll come across something, or like some of Alan Moore's more esoteric stuff, and be like, this is smarter than me.
And then like I be trying to reassure myself, right? I be like, well, you know what? It's good that I've reached the limits of my intellect.
you know
you're
how
deep the water runs.
Like, yeah, like, you know what? this is humbling, and I needed to see the limits. Now I know the limits. I can either stay here or try to get better. I'm like, fork in the road, guys.
That's like if you ever watch the show Doom Patrol, I can always tell people, like, whenever people come to me and say, dude, I saw this one thing that was in Doom Patrol. Like, what? Where's that? Is that in the comics? And I'd be like, what? Like, when they describe what it is, like for instance, I remember the literal precise moment when Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man first started showing up on the show, and people were like, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man.
Yeah.
And but like when they got to like Danny the Street.
Yeah, good luck trying to explain what Danny the Street is to somebody.
I was like, transgender street.
Yeah.
A sentient transgender street. Yes.
And that I think at one point becomes a brick, and then later becomes an ambulance, and then later becomes an actual like theme park. I was like, look, Grant Morrison just Grant Morrisoned everywhere. You just got to go with it, man. You got to go with it. Like, honestly, I was like, look, man, just read this. Just
Doom
read this
Patrol
and you'll
is
understand.
great, but get ready for weird.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the whole thing with Grant Morrison. I always tell people, like, sometimes I just like to read Grant Morrison. I have to be very prepared to read something that is going to make probably very little sense to me unless I've just taken an edible. But the thing is, I never hate it. Like, I'll never sit here and say, oh man, he's a trash writer, I don't like him, I don't like, get that guy out of here. I just know, when it comes to Grant Morrison, I just know when to hold him and when to fold him.
I'm not gonna get some of this. Let's go.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess as far as like but I guess all that was the day. Case in point, I always tell people, if you didn't like the Brian Michael Bendis version of Riri Williams, well, it just so happens there was a little series, 12 issues, written by Evel Ewing, who is going to be writing the Monica Rambeau comic that's coming up, Photon.
Yes.
Evel Ewing wrote 12 issues of Ironheart. And in those 12 issues, I challenge anyone to tell me Riri is not a charming character, even when she's being a brat, even when she's because she and that's kind of one of those things I think what a lot of people don't take into consideration with Riri is that, like, she has a lot of more emotional baggage than Miles does. Not to say that Miles doesn't have any, but just like, well, yes, Miles' mom got clapped. Look, I get it, sucks. It happened right in front of him. But she also lost her stepdad and her best friend, like, literally in the span of like 5 seconds.
Right.
And it's like, and that all happened in front of her eyes at a young age when she could have just as easily been killed herself. And when Miles' mom got clapped, he had superpowers. He could have, not to say he could have stopped it, but like he was in a different place. And Riri was always already that girl who was so smart that she didn't know how to be around other people. So like, I get it. It's one of those things, like, I understand where she comes from, like, not from the intelligence standpoint, because I'm nowhere near as smart as she is, but I like to consider myself of Luke Cage level intellect was what I like to. I'm no Hank McCoy. I'm no Hank Pym. I'm no Tony Stark. No Reed Richards. I'm no Peter Parker. I just like to hedge my bets and say Luke Cage level intellect. But I thrive on common sense. But yeah, I feel like she had a lot of emotional baggage. And I think people just weren't prepared to also deal with that too. Like, because she's disaffected. She's disaffected and she's withdrawn. And I feel like some people, especially if you're an older person, like around my age bracket, where teenagers are weird to you. That's something that I kind of had to, like, that's one of the things I always have to remind myself. It's like, she's a teenager. Like, I have to turn my empathy on and be able to empathize with the character. And but I will definitely say, yeah, if you've ever had trouble, like, if you ever like were reading the Invincible Iron Man series, and you just like, I just don't get Riri. I always tell people, go read the Evel Ewing run, because in the first issue, when she's talking to like a friend of hers, like, she is so lovable because she's talking to somebody who's just like her. And then that's when she opens up and she starts talking about what's her favorite series of Star Trek, and I was like, oh my God, we're on the same page. Because she literally says exactly the same thing I was saying when someone asked me, what Star Trek should I watch? I always say Deep Space Nine. And what does she say? Deep Space Nine, for the same reasons I said. She talked about the things that she loves, and you're like, oh, wow. Okay, I get it now. Miles was kind of allowed to be a nerd. We were kind of allowed to see the things he loves and see him opened up because he was just, normal kid at first. But, Riri was a different case. You had to get past some grief. And I think while we allow Batman to have his grief, we don't allow other characters to have it. Not just black characters, but just characters in general. I've noticed, like, anyone who has any grief to deal with, people are like, oh no, you just get over it. Yeah. Meanwhile, they got a pull list stacked this high with issues of Batman. Like, get out of my face with that.
Yeah,
I know. And it's like Batman's whole thing is he can't get over it.
Right. If he could get over it, he wouldn't be Batman.
Right.
If you are emotionally well adjusted, you're not a superhero.
No. God, no. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Look, let me tell you something. No one has ever jumped off a building who was in their right mind. Even if you told me they had the ability to fly, it takes a level of just not giving a damn. Yes. Oh no, 100%. Like you have to be a little bit touched. It was kind of one of the reasons why I remember in the 90s. I used to always find the character of Shadowhawk of Image Comics. I used to always find him very compelling because I never understood why he jumped off of buildings because I was like, you don't have superpowers, dude. You could die. And it was like, oh, he's got AIDS. Oh, makes sense to me now. I mean, what's the worst going to happen? He smacks
basically smoke him if you got him.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That actually made him more gangster to me because I was like, dude, because I remember I saw a spread, but dude literally jumped off a roof and the whole spread is like him in the middle. I was like, dude, what? You're going to hit the pavement. He's like, I got AIDS. And I was like, oh.
Okay, now listen, I know the character. I didn't read a lot. Was that like his, if he was doing something dangerous, is that an internal monologue on every page? I got AIDS.
I mean, it may as well have been. Like, because it was the whole thing. Like, it was, to be fair, you don't really know that he has AIDS at first. You find out later. But but it was one of those deals where it's like, yeah. This dude's crazy. He has no superpowers. I was like, I get it. I mean, yeah, Batman. Yeah, that's one thing. But I was like, first off, I was like, dude, you're trying to pull some Daredevil mess. And I was like, dude, you can't do it. You ain't Daredevil, pimp. But no, he didn't care because if he died, it wouldn't matter. But he died doing what he loved, I guess.
That's the grimmest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Image Comics in the 90s, everybody.
Oh yeah,
fair point,
dude. Well, yeah, early to mid 90s Image was something. It was something. And your characters were either had a lot of pockets and pouches.
So many
or
times.
were really edgelord or both. That was
to say it can be both.
Yeah. You would. It was man. It was Youngblood, edgy Avengers, Wildcats, edgy X-Men, Stormwatch, edgy everything. Cyberforce, edgy X-Force, Battalion, trying to be even edgier X-Force. That's just what it was. That's what you had back then. That was what the comics landscape was back then.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like if people want to give her a chance, if people would give Riri a chance, I think you could find a lot to love.
Yeah. Seaberry, what are your thoughts? Like I said, I've been saving this question.
All right. I was super casual on Miles at first. Like, mainly because I don't know why. I don't want to throw the racism card, but it seems kind of funny that at the Barnes & Noble where I was reading the trades of Ultimate Spider-Man for the free, all of a sudden, after the one where Peter Parker was murdered and Miles Morales took over, they just disappeared. And I was like, wait a minute, but but you had the rest of the trades. Like, guys, what's the deal? But I mean, he was okay. You know, I wasn't really blown away, but like I think it was the Spider-Man miniseries
Yes.
that kind of was like, okay, I kind of rock with Miles now.
Hmm.
And man, I think it's a combination of the video games and Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
That was like Mike, like a vintage Mike Tyson combo to the world, just like
Yeah.
you didn't like Miles. I bet you love him now. Even my comic shop owner was like, they finally made Miles interesting. So I was like, yeah, and also like, and I think Marvel did really good, kind of piggybacking off that, like the post Into the Spider-Verse stuff. Like, you know, he's been in some damn good comics. Like, shout out to Saladin Ahmed, whose run is recently ended. I despise the new little artsy, trendy costume. The costume's trash.
Yes.
But other than that, I really enjoyed all 42 issues of that series.
Yes.
And you know, I think the next people are gonna do some good stuff. So I just felt like they just handled it well and kind of weathered that initial storm when people were indifferent to, oh no, it's Black Spider-Man.
Right.
You know, they kind of weathered that storm. And it's like people said, man, Riri, there was just so many things that were bound to like piss off fanboys in the beginning with Riri. It's like, okay, first of all, you kind of have her coming up in Civil War II. Like, I ain't even read that. I was like, man, I ain't gonna read this. So like that was a period where I just wasn't reading crossovers. So like even now when I read a crossover, I just have to remind myself now, you know, it's Marvel, you know, like at some point in the last issue, they're gonna flip a switch and hey guys, the world's just how it was. La la la. You know,
Right.
so like I ain't even really read that, and like I think I got like a trade of like Bendis's run, and you know, I've been seeing her here and there. Like, I mean, I don't know if she can hit the Miles levels, but like I feel like if they handle her well in Wakanda Forever and her series, you know, I think eventually it'll get better.
Yeah.
You know, like I just feel like the verdict's still out. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, I don't think either one of them is gonna be a moment like Into the Spider-Verse. Like Into the Spider-Verse just blew my mind, and I'm, you know, darn near 50, been reading comics all my life, been going to the movies most of my life. I was just like, this is amazing. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like she can kind of get in the vicinity of that if Wakanda Forever and this series like just really work. And yeah, you know, and it's kind of crazy that people were mad at her for being kind of bratty. I was like, but if she was perfect, you would have called her a Mary Sue.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you want, fanboys?
Yeah. Well, I even saw that thrown against her as well, being a Mary Sue, because she's like so smart, because she, you know, all right, she's got everything at a very young age. She doesn't have a weakness. She can do anything. She can put together a suit of armor just like Tony Stark at 15. But I think a lot of people forget, once it's not like she invented that technology. It was like, oh, she's reverse engineering something that Tony Stark had been doing for years. And it's a lot easier to reverse engineer something that's already been made rather than create your own from scratch. So yeah, it's just kind of funny. And like Ernie said, the same thing with Moon Girl. They, you know, the same criticisms. Oh, she can't be the smartest one. She's only 9 years old or whatever it is. And I just think that's interesting that they also those two characters very similar time frames where they were coming out, and also both two black females, young black females. And I'm kind of surprised Marvel didn't say, oh, wait a minute, we already got one of those. Let's make a Japanese, or let's make a Mexican or something. It's just, that was interesting that they would go that route. But I'm in agreement with everything that Ernie and Seaberry have said. I think the time aspect of Riri versus Miles is going to be, Miles has just had a longer runway, and this might be a controversial statement, but I feel like Bendis is starting to get to that Stan Lee place in my head where fantastic, great creator, originator, but when it comes to the stories, I'm not a big fan of Stan Lee. And
dude, Bendis been the brick master at DC. Let's not skate around. It's like, man, I be wanting to quote 50 Cent, like, dang, homie, in high school you was the man, homie.
Right.
What happened to you?
Yeah.
Listen, I know this is not canon, but Jordan, some people say Jordan played for the Wizards. It's that kind of a thing. I know we don't accept that as canon. Like, that's not canon. It didn't happen.
Hey yo, but even like Floyd Jordan was averaging like 20 a night, man.
That's
like,
that's true. That's true.
So everybody be hating on Floyd Jordan, but he was still, putting in work. Like this like Tree Rollins as like a player coach on the Orlando bench. Like, he don't see the floor. Y'all know Shaq playing 40 to 45 minutes.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing with Bendis, though, and this is something I tell people all the time with Bendis. Like, anytime I recommend anything, Bendis is this. Bendis is he's the type of creator. It depends on which Bendis woke up that morning. It's always a tale of two Bendises. It's
Bendices, if you will.
Yes, Bendices. Yeah. Did his wife make him that breakfast, his favorite breakfast in the morning? Did his kids, did they pat him on the back and say, "Hey, thank you for that, for putting Fortnite on the PlayStation, or thank you for the Robux that you gifted me. Thank you for that. Did the person at Starbucks, did the barista get his drink order correctly? There's a lot of factors that go into it, and that tells me, I can tell what kind of day Bendis had. Well, because here's the thing. Here's something I think a lot of people really don't look at with Bendis is that, and granted, I will admit, I don't give him as much of the credit for stuff like Naomi, because he's co-writing that with David F. Walker, but I can see the Bendis touch tones in there. Like, there's little things like, and this is something, and maybe it'll recontextualize how a lot of people view Bendis, because I feel like a lot of people don't catch this. Bendis is a huge fan of Dwayne McDuffie. And if you think about it, a lot of the things that Bendis has done over the years have all kind of been callbacks to Dwayne McDuffie. I'll start with Miles Morales. Miles Morales, Static Shock. Or just Static as I knew him. I'd never like calling him Static Shock. I was like, that man's name is Static. Y'all leave that man alone. But no, so Static, same type of story, damn near. Miles Morales and Static have almost the exact same origin story, minus Static trying to shoot somebody with a gun. But yeah, young black kid, a nerd, into nerdy stuff, not really doing a good job of juggling responsibilities and being a superhero. But that kind of also plays off the fact that Static was kind of just a young black kid version of Spider-Man. Right. That was the Spider-Man formula they used on Static. But they use that same formula for Miles, only this time he's Spider-Man. So it was kind of like it's kind of like when if you grew up with games like Final Fight and Streets of Rage, it's kind of a situation where it's like Streets of Rage was a very blatant ripoff of Final Fight, but it got to a point where Streets of Rage just turned out to be better. I'm not saying that Miles is better than Static, but just it got to a point where, it was like Static walked so Miles could run.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with Riri Williams. Riri is actually a character that's admittedly not as popular as Static was from Milestone, but if you look at a lot of the touch tones for Riri, she's very similar to a character from Hardware that was called Technique. Very, very same character. Like the only difference being that Riri's younger. That's really like one of the only differences. And matter of fact, if you go back and look at some of the old notes from when they were making these characters back in Milestone, some of it was stuff that actually wound up getting used by Bendis. And then by the time he got to Naomi, he was just like, well, I've run out of stuff to homage from Dwayne McDuffie, so I'm just gonna call Naomi McDuffie. We're just gonna call it. That's just what we're gonna do now. That's the he's like, look, I can't be more obvious now if I tried.
Right.
But yeah, like I think sometimes that might help contextualize a little bit. I think that he has his moments. I think Naomi's probably the better thing that he has written during his time at DC. But once again, that's co-written with David F. Walker, who's a fantastic writer as well.
Yeah.
Which I will always say, if you have not read Bitter Root by David F. Walker, and Chuck Brown, Sanford Green, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because that book is fantastic.
Exactly.
Eisner award-winning Bitter Root, might I add. But yeah, I feel like Bendis, you just gotta catch him on the right day. Because, and I'll admit, because I think he did some of the Young Justice stuff, and I like some of that too. Not all of it, but some of it. But I also like to remind people too, a lot of the times when he's creating characters, he's creating for his kids now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know he has 2 adopted black kids. And that was actually his reasoning for making characters like Miles Morales and Riri so that they could have characters that look like them. And while your mileage with that's going to vary, once again, great creator. But the writing might be starting to lack. But I'm not going to make that have me forget what he's done before.
Right.
Like I said, yeah. I'm still, like I said, Jordan. He went to
right.
Look, he might have went to go play baseball, but 3 Pete Bulls. You can't take that away from him.
Right. 100%. And I'm the
flu game. You can't take the flu game away from him.
Yeah. I'm the same way because I'll never forget Ultimate Spider-Man. It's one of my favorite runs of all time. Like I've already talked about the Daredevil. He
revolutionized it.
Yeah. Like there's a ton of stuff that Bendis in the early 2000s, you could not touch him. He was Mike in the late 80s, early 90s. Like you could not touch him. So I 100% give Bendis that credit. It's just now I'm not the let's say the field goal percentage is a little bit down now. It used to be a little bit higher.
He ain't got that blank check with you no more. He can't just cut. Well, you got to think about it too. He was writing so much stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think honestly, the well just ran dry. Like that you could run out of ideas.
Right.
The guy was literally writing everything.
Yeah.
Like he was writing everything in Ultimate, and he was writing stuff on the main Marvel imprint. He was on every crossover, just about every major thing that was going on Marvel was like Brian Michael Bendis. Was he was on Civil War? That was
he was Mark Miller was on that, but
that was Mark Miller.
The story too, like he worked on the story.
Yeah, he worked on some. I think, or was it? No, I'm thinking about Secret Invasion.
Yes, that's right.
Secret Invasion. That was where he came.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, you go there. It's like, dude, he just man, he's all over the place.
Right.
Let the man rest. Honestly, that man, that DC is that man's retirement plan. Look, that man, he's like, look, man, I'm just trying to chill right now, man. Look, I don't know what I'm doing.
I
thought
like, about that.
Getting them checks, Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah. Hey, look. I'm just saying, look, B&B, man, we all we got.
Well,
but no, it is what it is. But I will definitely say, I agree. Yeah, y'all said it right. A longer road. Those characters have a longer road to
Yeah.
to try and stroll down.
Right.
Miles ran. Riri
Right.
gonna have to run too.
Yeah. Because
Miles had to hit the floor running.
Right. When you have that stretch, you can have multiple writers come in. You can have different takes on the characters. You can have a little bit of, her canon built up or her backstory. But she also hasn't had, I think, the villains either to kind of bolster up her resume. Like there just hasn't been a whole lot of story told for her yet. And Miles has had that. And like Seaberry said, with the latest run, he's getting his own clone. He's getting his own characters, his own villains and stuff like that. So yeah, he just had a longer runway, I think, rather than Riri. But Ernie, I really want to thank you for joining us today. We are unfortunately out of time, but we also have some more questions for you. So I want you to make us proud and come back to the Comic Book Kaiju because we have plenty more to discuss with you and plenty more to talk about on the next show. I want to let everybody know that you can right now, as you're watching this or listening to this, you can go to TikTok, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Twitter, Facebook, you can even go to Apple Podcasts and check out Blurred Without Fear. The Blurred Cave is not only a podcast that you can listen to, but also that's a live stream on YouTube, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is a live stream you can catch on YouTube every Saturday at I guess if you're Memphis time, but I'll say it, the standard for everyone else. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific.
Excellent.
Or if you're in Memphis, then 12 o'clock.
Yeah. Here in Arizona, we don't do the daylight savings time, so we're kind of off in our own world. But I definitely urge everyone to check out the Blurred Cave. Everything Blurred Without Fear. You're gonna love. If you enjoyed our conversation today, definitely go check out all of Ernie's stuff. Like I said, he's hitting it out of the park. Ernie right now is Mike in the 80s. Right now, he's 23. You can't touch Ernie. Blurred is doing major moves right now. He's about to three-peat, so you want to get in on the Blurred train early before he three-peats. Right now, he's about to go face Magic in the finals, so we got to get on the Ernie train early.
Yeah.
Love that. Like, I'm about to come out here and be like, yeah, man. yeah, that's right.
But thank you very much.
Next time he comes back on the show, he has like a Ric Flair robe.
Yeah. Well, you start hearing the... like, that's how I'm going to... That's what's going to happen now. You did this. You did this.
Excellent.
I just want to be JJ Dillon. That's all. I just want to be JJ Dillon.
Ernie, the Blurred Without Fear, loves comics, and you should too.